Hey, what's up, guys? It is Rapmark here. So, doing my review for Black Adam. Um, this film was greatly delayed. First announced in like 2014, delayed until 2021, but then COVID hit, obviously. So, like many things, it has been passed along the event. It has been rewritten. It has gone through some hell, but it is finally here. And man, what what a mess this film was, to be completely honest. In the first place, Black Adam himself doesn't really feel like the anti-hero he's supposed to be. Like, they try, but at the end of the day, he just feels like a hero. Um, and let's see, like the action scenes I thought were really good on it. Uh, I mean, surprising. Like there were some really good ones. They did like the slow mo kind of cliche that they do, just to show like how fast he is without like showing how fast he is. Uh, and that was really fun. Uh, there was some wonky CGI there as well. I mean, in terms of his depowered phase, uh, it looked a little weird, but I mean, most of the CGI actually looked pretty good. So I will hand that to them. It did do well. Um, let's see, the characters. I mean, to be honest, this whole thing could have been done with like just Black Adam, Hawkman, and Doctor Fate. There were two others, Cyclone and Atom Smasher. So not the original Atom Smasher. It is his nephew, who is a new and younger Atom Smasher. So, and then Cyclone, uh, a young hero that got her powers from being experimented on, essentially. Uh, so with those two, they just felt so distracting. Like it felt like they almost had Adam, like Adam Smasher. He seemed to have no role whatsoever aside from like comic relief and to just occasionally harm one of the heroes. Uh, Cyclone was like present a couple times, but I mean, not real. Like again, I don't understand why these characters are involved. I mean, I guess they'll be involved in future projects, I suppose. But I mean, in this film, like as a standalone piece, they just felt so extra and distracting and just not worth really mentioning. Like this whole film, pretty much, was Teth Adam, Black Adam, Hawkman, Doctor Fate. Like that, literally is. They're the only characters you really care about, to be honest. Everything else is just like so peripheral to the point of like you don't even have they barely have their own personalities and characters. Another complaint I liked is the actual villain. So he turns out to be the without going into spoiler, like the villain was just so underwhelming and literally didn't even make an appearance until the last 5-10 minutes of the film. Like it was just so much running around. Like the plot was all over the place. You don't know where the story's going, and many times the story wasn't going anywhere. It was just it was action, which was fun. It was fun to watch, but you really weren't given any sort of compelling storytelling or writing in this. It was just really nuts. I mean, I wasn't the biggest fan of Adriana or her son Amen, who, if they're doing what I think they're doing with them, they will be involved in other films. Because Adriana, from my memory, I know they've redone Black Adam a couple of times, like rebooted him. She essentially marries him and becomes Isis and is part of the Black Marvel family, sort of the counterpart to the to the other Shazam family from with Billy and all that. Um, but then it's weird because Amen, he becomes Osiris, but he's supposed to be Adriana's brother. Um, but now he's her son. So I don't know where they're gonna go with it. But I mean, essentially, and again, not going into spoilers, but going into more of the comics to sort of explain this real quick before I get into the movie. Um, like Adriana meets Teth Adam, and sort of encourages him to do better. Be more of a protector rather than an avenger. And he does, and he becomes more. So I'm guessing they're going with that, which is I forget. It's something 52, where it was the reboot. But yeah. But then her death kind of sets him down on a downward spiral, and yeah, he becomes just a bloody avenger who is a very much an anti-hero. Um, and then it was like, yeah, there's a whole new thing with Osiris. I guess that's going to be changed, or maybe I don't know. But I mean, are they going to turn Adriana into Isis in this? Like that would be neat because it opens up a lot of storylines to do with that. Um, like for real, it's really actually very compelling. Like Black Adam is a really tragic character. Uh, in whatever arc you're reading. It just does not end well for him. Hence why he's so angry. Uh, so yeah, or are they just gonna kill her off? I mean, are they gonna get married? I don't know, but I mean that's sort of the role she's kind of walked into. But now in this film, though, it it just didn't work for me. Like, she just seemed so peripheral and barely. And her son was more involved. Like, he was all over the place and like skateboarding and like he had so much attention, and it's just like I'm just wondering to myself, what are they gonna do? Like, because it could either turn out if really bad if they keep going along the route they're going with these characters, or it could turn really good if they actually take a chance and go with the whole ISIS storyline. That would be really cool. But anyway, I am diverging from the movie a little bit, so just wanted to get some lore in there, understanding of who these characters are supposed to be representing. Not very well, unfortunately. But anyway, yeah, we covered the villain and other characters. Um, yeah, the plot was all over the place. I did like his costume. His costume did look good. Um, like, it was very well shot. Like, the shots were great. Um, and like I said, the CGI was great. Like, there was a lot of talent that went into this when it came to like shooting and directing, but man, the writing was just not good. And it's sad because in the first act, I was very intrigued. Like they kind of brought up some interesting things, which I wish they would have gone into more. Um, but they didn't. Like some of them just dropped off into oblivion, and then the second act just sort of devolved into this like endless action scene. Like I'll say this for the movie. It was a fun watch because there was just action all over the place. There was a lot of action. It was an amazingly fun watch. Um, let's see, what else can I mention about this? I mean, yeah, without getting into spoilers, like that's about all I can say right now for this. I will say also that, with again without spoiling, I am excited about where DC can go from here because it can go into some pretty cool, interesting things. But yeah, this film was just kind of a mixed bag. Like, what would I give this film? Because once again, they're like half the movie I liked. Yeah, and then half the movie I didn't like. Because again, I liked that there was all this action. The action was good. Everything was well choreographed. But there were things that like didn't make sense. I wasn't a fan of what they did to the characters. Um, the dialogue was just so so wonky. The writing was bad. So I don't think this is the worst thing. I mean, I was entertained for it, but I'm just like DC. You need to do better. You need to hire yourself some better writers because, man, I give this a 5 out of 10. It was a fun watch, but it was. I think there were just so many interesting things that were brought up in the first act that were just sort of dropped off or executed poorly in the second and third acts. Um, and again, if you're waiting 10 minutes before a movie closes to bring out your main villain, you've messed up somewhere, for sure. So anyway, that is it for this part. I will be back in a little bit with the spoiler section. So until then, I'll see you guys then. See ya. Hey guys, it is Rapmark here with the spoiler section of Black Adam. So let's do breakdown. So we go back into early times. It's like 2600 BC, and it's the kingdom of Kondak. So Ankton, he creates the crown of Sabak. You know that it was a thing. Acton was like an ancient supervillain though back in the day. I'm not sure if he's still alive, but I mean the origin story is very similar to that in the comics, so I will give it that. Um, but anyway, that so the crown of Sabak. Uh, he enslaves all his people, and this little boy of all people, like, encourages or tries to encourage a revolt. He does, the crazy hand sign, like, at least I can't do it in full because of my injured hand. But yeah, he does that, holding a thing of Eternium, which is the metal here that they're using, and it's only found in Kondak. So he's taken, and they're going to kill him, and then he disappears, and then you talk about the whole Teth Adam and how he fought the king, defeated him, destroyed the palace, and then was entombed. So I liked the initial opening. Um, it felt a little weird. Like it almost felt like a Wakanda kind of thing at first. Until you get into modern day, and then it's just like, oh, good grief. Okay. Um, but yeah, moving on from there. So going into present day, it is oppressed by Inner Gang, which is slightly different in the comics, but it's whatever. But I mean, so Inner Gang just I don't know, the whole Inner Gang plot line was, it just felt so dumb. Like he practically destroyed their entire army all by himself. There's at one point in the movie he goes to their main base and they're trying to do this plan, and Black Adam, he just jumps off and he just annihilates this entire base by himself. And that's Black Adam. He's literally that powerful. Like he literally has the power of Shazam and all these other powers, the old gods. So yeah, so he doesn't need to do much. So that's where you're introduced to Adriana, uh, and then there's also his brother Karim. I did like Karim; he was funny, uh, but again, just felt very peripheral, kind of one dimensional as well, but an entertaining character nonetheless. And then you have Samir and Ishmael. Samir does not last long. He dies after they find what they're looking for, the crown. And then Ishmael, well, he turns out to be the big baddie. He turns out to be a descendant of the king Octon. And yeah, we'll get into that in a little bit. And it's just so ridiculous. So so these three, they go to find the crown, and they find it so easy. Like, good grief, this is a crown that could literally be like world ending, and they just immediately find it in a mountain that anyone could go to. All right. And then on top of that, Inner Gang either follows them or is there, like, again, somehow, like, how has no one found this after 3,000 years or 4,000 5,000 years? I think it is, like, in the comics it says something like 5,000, but yeah, it's just like, wow. So that was weak writing on that bit for sure. Anyway, yeah, Samir is killed. Uh, Nishmael kills him, pushes off the cliff, and then shows up. Adriana's like gonna get killed, and she reads the incantation that awakens him. And Adam ends up slaughtering most of the troops in there. And this is one of the absolute great action scenes. Like he goes out, there's helicopters, there's tanks, there's rocket launchers, and it just does this slow mo like action thing of like you'll go slow then fast, and it looks amazing. Like he completely destroys the helicopters first, and then he like looks like he's plotting out as the helicopter's exploding, like where he's gonna throw the propellers, where he's gonna throw the engine, where he's gonna throw the body to land. It looks super cool. It's tropey as hell, but I thought it looked super cool and super fun. Like I love the action of this movie, to be fair. And yeah, but then there's an element that's mentioned here that I thought was going to be interesting, but it ended up going nowhere. So this guy takes a rocket launcher, this Inner Gang guy, and it's an Eternium rocket. Like he catches the rocket and it turns around, it's Eternium, blows up, and there's these cracks in his skin, and then he flies away, and then falls down. Like he passes out. He's done. Like so they take him somehow this the this small woman and her very big brother managed to get him up and take him to her place. Um, where he wakes up, and that's where you meet Amen, her son. Um, but yeah, like he wakes up and he just like takes his hand and just heals himself right up. Like it plays a no useful thing. Why include it? What was the point of that? It's just like, oh, to move plot. It was a MacGuffin essentially, and it's yeah. Just like man, the writing on this was just so weak. I'm sorry. Again, the action was well done, well choreographed, well put in. But man, the writing was just so not good. So anyway, this is where we meet the team. You see Amanda Waller, uh, who contacts the Justice Society, which is Hawkman, Dr. Fate, Cyclone, and Atom Smasher. Like I said, not the original Atom Smasher, but his nephew, who is taking his suit and has the same abilities. And then it's weird, like with Dr. Fate and Hawkman, because Dr. Fate, he has premonitions, and he's done really well. Like the Injustice video game, I think captured him really well. But he keeps seeing this premonition of where he sees Hawkman dying, which is so irrelevant because Hawkman's whole thing is he can be reincarnated. Like he dies, like he doesn't fear death because he dies. He's just reincarnated. Eventually gets his powers and his memories back. So I don't know why Dr. Fate, because it was a continuing thing. Like he didn't want his friend to die, but it's just like it's really irrelevant if he does die. Whereas in this one, Dr. Fate, he dies. I mean, that's it. But apparently he does die. But I mean, looking at the bottom of this, apparently that he's gonna come back. So, I don't know what they're planning on it, but we'll see. We'll see. So anyway, they're going to take him into custody. They come in. They fight. He's demolishing the city, like, battling the inner gang troops. But they make a very good point. Like Hawkman is asking her to you know, because she has the crown, and he's just like one thing at a time. And they focus on Black Adam. But it's just like, why would you not try to do both? This is a crown that could potentially end the world as we know it. Like, I don't know. Like, this is just the whole tunnel vision of these guys. Because the problem is once again, they're trying to set him up as an anti-hero, but it's not working. He's coming off as more of a hero in this because the people he's killing are terrible people. So what if he's killing people? Like, and then because it makes the Justice Society just look dumb, essentially. Like, well, like I said, a good point was brought up. Adriana is just like, where were you when Intergang took over? No one came, no one's helped us for years, so it's like, where were you? And then it's just sort of brushed off as well. Whatever. So yeah, another couple things of really bad writing. So anyway, they do explain to Adriana that he was not the savior, but a madman who was imprisoned. But that's not the full story, unfortunately. You find out the full story a little bit later. So anyway, Ishmael reveals himself as the leader of the gang and chases Amun, who has taken the crown. And they all tend, and he is taken. And that sets up a bike scene, which is, again, he's just brutally massacring people. But they're bad people, so I can't really say that makes him an anti-hero. But there is some funniness here, and one of these is coming up. So, um, in the last bike he chases down and captures, it does a trick of a cinematography trick where, you know, opens it, he's there, but nothing's there because what it's showing is Ishmael opening his bike, and then at the same time, uh, Adam opening the bike he's at, and and there's nothing there. Apparently, they're in China at this point. They went a long way. uh, I mean, it's somewhere in Asia for sure. I have no idea, but they're definitely not in Egypt or North Africa. I think, yeah, is in North Africa. Kanduk is in North Africa, I believe. It's a fictional country in North Africa. Um, and then he takes the guy and he's just like, he throws him. Dr. Fate shows up. It's just like, you have a prisoner? Well, give him to me and I will break his mind to get the information. Black Adam says nothing. And Dr. Fate is just like, you killed him, didn't you? And then he just falls and goes splat. And Black Adam is just like, he didn't make it. So, I mean, there is some cheesy funniness to be had here, but it's kind of far and in between. Um, but yeah, there was an initial fight where they were fighting, where I talked about where Adrian points out, where have you been, to the Justice Society. Um, and it was fun, but again, it just seemed like the Cyclone and Atom Smasher were just, they were barely involved. It was all more about, Hawkman and Doctor Fate, to be honest. So I just don't know. So anyway, Ishmael reveals that he is the last descendant of King Acton and wants his rightful place on the throne. Wants the crown, which has an inscription that says something like, "Only death can bring life." So I think he realizes he needs to die. He also needs to go to hell, which is why he attempts to shoot Amon as they trade for the crown. Now Adam loses control, destroys the hideout, it kills Ishmael, it wounds Amon. So he goes back to the palace, and Hawkman and him talk, where he told, what actually happened, that it was Adam's son Harut, which is a made-up character. I don't remember hearing any of this in the comics. I could be wrong. Feel free to correct. But he gives Adam his powers to save his life, and then Octon's assassins kill him, and then Adam slaughtered everyone, went into the king's palace and destroyed everything. And because it was all based on vengeance, he was deemed unworthy by the Council of Wizards and imprisoned. So Adam surrenders. He depowers himself and surrenders. They take him to a black site, and Fate has another premonition, and he's sort of put into this suspended animation. So they return to Kondak, and they realize that Ishmael intentionally did it because he had to be damned to hell. He had to die, and he had to go to hell so that he could be reborn as the champions of the six demons of Sabak and essentially create hell on earth. So Sabak, he's reborn, and he summons the Legion of Hells, the legions of hell, to terrorize Kondak. And again, it's like Amin, Adriana, and Kareem. Like, Adriana and Kareem are freaking. They are just dominating these demons, whatever. Like, it's. And then he goes and he goes, runs to the people, tries to get the. And then he does the whole, which is cheesy and corny as hell, by the way. And then it just looks like there's like maybe a few dozen people that go, and they just wail on these demons, and I'm just like, man, this there have been some decent action scenes in this. This was not one of them, unfortunately. This was not good. So anyway, Fate reveals that Hawkman's death can be avoided with his own sacrifice, which again, it really doesn't matter if he dies unless they've changed his powers in this, in which case Hawkman sucks, because that's kind of his whole thing is reincarnation. And, well, I mean, he has other powers, obviously, but that's like his main thing. Like, he can't actually die. He just keeps getting reincarnated. So anyway, another really sad thing about that. Oh, but there was a funny part that I did forget. So his grasp of sarcasm. Like, there's a point where he just walks through walls. Black Adam, walks through, and Dr. Fate's just like, they have. Guess they didn't have doors when you in your time. It's just like, of course they did. How do you think we went through buildings? Then he just says that's sarcasm. And then there's two prisoners, which they take, and he takes them both, and essentially it's just like, I'm not going to kill them both. I'm only going to drop one. The first one to tell me everything gets to live. So he asks one, he doesn't know anything, and he just drops him. And then the other guy tells him everything, drops him anyway. He said, and then he comes back and he's just like, I thought you said you weren't going to kill him. I was being sarcastic. Dr. Fate is just like, no, that's just a lie. I don't know. So some of maybe some people don't find it as funny as I did, but there were some funny lines in here. For the most part, though, the writing was kind of bad. So anyway, where was I? So he fights Sabak by himself, Dr. Fate, and is killed. The force field that kept everyone else out comes down, before he dies, he sends an astral projection, frees Adam from his prison, and unpowered, he fights his way through uh, the black site into the ocean. Like we're at the bottom of the sea. This is where pressure is just like crushing. Water is freezing, and I'm just like, this makes no damn sense whatsoever. And then there's this whole thing where he's in the water. He still doesn't say the word. I mean, I get underwater. I guess you can't, but I mean, you could though. I don't know. I don't know, guys. But I mean, it just serves as a whole thing of, he sees his wife and son again, and they tell him it's not his time, and then he's floating on the surface of the water, says Shazam, and goes off back to Kondak. And just as Sabak is about to kill Hawkman, which is irrelevant, Adam shows up, fights and fights and fights. Hawkman uses Dr. Fate's helmet to essentially create a bunch of astral projections of himself, holds Sabak to the throne, and then Adam essentially grabs him and rips him in half. It's just so gnarly. Just as Sabak's about to kill Justice Society, he just gets ripped in half. And they depart on good terms with Adam. It was essentially, and then comes one of the worst scenes where Waller, and this is the mid-credit scene, which was horribly done, but makes me really excited for the future. Essentially says, if you don't want to stay in my prison, fine. Kondak will be your new prison. And he's just like, well, there's no one on Earth who can stop me. Well, fine, I'll just get some friends from Offworld. And it's just like, and I just, so she summons Superman, and I just refuse to accept that he's like at her beck and call. Like, he must have felt something and wanted to check it out. Like, that I could accept, but her like just summoning him like that, no, that's I'm sorry, no. But yeah, that's the best part. Superman shows up, and guess who it is? It is Henry Cavill making his return into the DC universe. So once again, there's some really exciting things here that could potentially be done, and then some stuff which I'm just like not feeling. And this film itself was just plagued with issues. So again, 5 out of 10. Anyway, that is my thoughts on Black Adam. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed, and I'll catch you guys next time. See ya.